Hey developers, welcome to Optonex Tech. Want to make your form smarter and sleeker? Imagine a checkbox that not only looks stunning but also adapts to any form in seconds. Let's build a fully customizable and dynamic checkbox component with live validation. We have already created React project. In that, create new folder named checkbox inside components folder which contains two files, index.jsx for component logic and checkbox.css for custom styling. Moving to index file, first we import checkbox CSS file for styling the component. Then, we define the checkbox component using an arrow function. It accepts four props: label, which is the text displayed next to the checkbox, is checked, a boolean that determines whether the checkbox is checked, on change, a function that handles changes to the checkbox state, and custom styles, which is an optional object allowing for custom styling of the component's elements. Next, we return the checkbox element inside a label tag of class name checkbox container and an optional custom styles prop for adding dynamic styles. Then, we write input element which creates a checkbox. The type is set to checkbox and its checked state is controlled by the isChecked prop. When the checkbox is clicked, it triggers the onChange function, updating its state. The checkbox uses a custom class for styling and allows for additional inline styles via the custom styles.input prop. Now, we add the custom checkmark span, which will visually indicate when the checkbox is checked. We apply the style from custom styles to allow full customization. Then, we add the optional label for the checkbox. This label appears next to the checkbox, making the UI more intuitive for users. And finally, we export the default checkbox component to use in other parts of the application. Now let's write CSS classes. The checkbox container class styles the main container, enabling a flex layout that aligns items center vertically. The cursor property enhances user experience by indicating interactivity. Margins are set for spacing, position is set to relative and font size is set to 16 pixels. This CSS hides the default checkbox input by setting its opacity to 0 and reducing its height and width to 0. The absolute positioning ensures it's clickable without being visible, allowing full customization of the checkbox appearance. The checkmark class styles the visible checkbox area. It defines dimensions, background color, and rounded corners. The transition property adds a smooth color change effect when the checkbox state changes. This CSS rule changes the background color of the checkmark to a vibrant blue when the checkbox is checked. The adjacent sibling select a plus ensures the style applies only when the input is in a checked state. This code creates the checkmark that appears inside the checkbox when it's selected. The after pseudo element is positioned absolutely within the checkbox, styled with a white border to form a tick mark, and rotated 45 degrees to create the familiar checkmark shape. Initially, it's hidden using display none until the checkbox is checked. This rule shows the checkmark icon when the checkbox is checked. It changes the display property to block, making the checkmark visible within the checkmark container. The label text class styles the label for the checkbox. It adds margin for spacing, sets the font size, and defines the text color, with a transition effect for smooth color changes. First, we import the useState hook from React. Also, import two components which are already created, checkbox and button from the components directory. Then, we initialize two pieces of state. IsChecked manages whether the checkbox is selected, and error stores any validation messages. Both are initialized with default values, whereas checked starts as false and error as an empty string. Next, we define the handle checkbox change function. When the checkbox is clicked, it toggles the isChecked state and resets any error message by setting setError to an empty string. Now, in the handle submit function, when the form is submitted, it first checks if the checkbox is selected. If not, an error message appears requiring agreement to the terms. Otherwise, it displays a success alert. We begin by creating a form element that triggers the handle submit function when submitted. The class form container ensures proper layout and styling of the form. Next, we use the checkbox component with a label asking users to agree to the terms and conditions. The isChecked state determines whether the checkbox is selected, and the handle checkbox change function toggles that state. We also pass custom styles that dynamically change the color of the checkbox and label based on the selection. Here, we conditionally render an error message. If the error state is not empty, the error is displayed with the class error message. Finally, we add a submit button using the button component. It has a label submit, a primary variant for styling, and triggers the form submission process. Also, we are writing classes for form container and error message in app.css file. Now our development is completed. Let's see demo in action. Here, users are presented with a simple form that includes a checkbox for agreeing to the terms and conditions. As you interact with the checkbox, notice the color change from gray to blue when selected, providing clear visual feedback. The checkbox's dynamic styles are fully customizable, allowing you to adjust the design to fit your app's theme. Upon submitting the form, if the checkbox isn't selected, an error message appears reminding you to agree to the terms. Once the checkbox is checked, the form is successfully submitted, showing smooth validation in action. This component is perfect for any professional form, offering flexibility in both design and functionality, ensuring a seamless user experience. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for upcoming videos.